which we need to cover today. I also want to start module 3, otherwise we will be late. So thank you very much, everyone, and welcome for day 4 and module 2, session 3. Today, we are going to discuss specifically on international GHG accounting framework. And our focus today will be on GHG protocol, which we are going to use throughout our next couple of sessions for calculation purposes of carbon accounting. And also we will learn that what is there in ISO 64, 1464, that's the standard for carbon accounting. We will go in detail of ISO 14,000 altogether, because all those 14,000 somewhere links to the environmental science, environmental management. So we need to look into what all has been covered there. And of course, details on GHG protocol will be critical. So let me start with introduction of international standards, which we are going to discuss today, of course, GHG accounting. But before we go there, let me tell you, there are mostly these two standards are well recognized across the world, but GHG protocol specifically leads the market. Why? Because this was the first protocol which was approved by United Nations to be used for carbon accounting and sustainability reporting purposes. It was developed by two of the institutions, World Resource Institute, WRI, and WBCSD. Both are non-governmental, non-governmental organization, NGOs. They started this development. Later on, of course, it was adopted by international body. This offers sector-specific and general calculation tool, which was adopted in 1998. And in 2001 onward, you will see it was adopted across corporates for their carbon emission calculations. What it does, it quantifies the GHG emission from a company, and then it also enables people to have a reduction and mitigation plans. So there are 7 different protocols are there under greenhouse gas protocol. What our focus will be definitely is on corporate GHG protocol, which includes scope 1 and 2. And there is an independent booklet by greenhouse gas protocol is for scope 3. Of course, there is a scope, there is a protocol for project protocol, then there is a protocol for product, life cycle assessment, etc. This is not our focus today. This forms a basis, by the way, this particular document also forms a basis and guideline for ISO 14,064. Why? Because 14,064 has the same team coming from WRI and CSD who developed ISO 14,064 standard. Specifically, there are 3 separate standards in 1464. 1 and 2 is where it relies on the GHG protocol. 3, of course, talks about the life cycle. 3 talks about 14,064. 3 talks about auditing, and that's why it doesn't rely on the same. So what's the ISO covers is ISO 14,064 basically sets the cap on the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions that can be emitted by the covered entity which you are evaluating, where the companies receives or purchase emission allowances, and they can trade unused allowances in the market. So it also helps you in the carbon credit side. Why? Because this certification helps you create that credibility that you can trade your emissions and the allowances which you are saving. Gradually, of course, according to the GHG emission plans, it reduces. And this is a carbon credit description which I have put there, which anyway we have discussed yesterday as well. And then there are other standards which are quite useful while doing greenhouse gas accounting. And those are 2006 IPCC guideline. And there is a IPCC AR6 now, a version which we use for the emission factor calculations. And then ISO 14,025, which is used for life cycle assessment of a company production, basically for the product. And also, there is another standard, ISO 14067, which is for the carbon footprint of the product itself. So there is a life cycle assessment calculations which you can use for carbon emission, and also you can use standard for carbon footprint product calculation, which is covered into ISO 14064. Now, if that is clear, let's first understand clearly that how these two standards differ from each other. So as I have told you yesterday, GHG protocol establishes what to measure, yeah, what to measure, what to report, while ISO 14064 is a stringent mechanism and that establishes how to measure. So they give you a particular guideline that this is how you should measure. If it is not falling in this purview, you cannot calculate it, or it is not into your authority to calculate it. Let the company bring independent parties and collect that data. So it's very stringent and specific about it. And that is why the difference need to be understood. And there are some overlapping stuff, which is basically in terms of a scope. Both of them have the same scope. Here, I'm talking about GHG protocol and ISO 14064. Both of them has the same scope, same components even. Yeah. And third is, of course, it's both of them. If you are using, your document become usable by world. So it's for the global use. So this is the common factor where each of them overshadowing each other. While there is differentiation factor, which stands on the in terms of origin, verification, flexibility, application, and certification. On these five grounds, GHG protocol completely differs, or actually it differs. We can't say completely because still there is some clauses which overlaps, because you are measuring the same thing, right? Right? You are measuring how much of ton of carbon dioxide has been emitted by your company or by the value chain. So eventually it merges somewhere. But to understand the difference between these two, I have taken this parameter. For example, if I'm talking about origin, of course, origin of GHG protocol is much earlier than the ISO standard, right? And it is done by WRI, World Resource Institute, and World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD. That's what a short form is. So that is the origin of GHG protocol. And ISO is developed by International Organization for Standardization, which is short form is ISO. So both of them totally different body who has developed the document. Verification in other critical aspect where ISO has little more weightage than the GHG, because GHG gives you flexibility. So there are some recognized company as well as some not so recognized company are doing this verification, GHG. But for ISO, you need to have an internal audit certification by ISO. Then only you can do such kind of audit. And once that auditor issued, and of course in ISO also there are a lot of gray areas where there are Tom, Dick, and Harry are available nowadays, and they are issuing ISO certification left, right, and center, right? But still, ISO certification is little stringent. It has some requirement, and you have to match it. So the verification part, GHG protocol, of course, focuses on transparency, consistency, and a less detailed third-party verification guidelines. So they do not have a very detailed guideline for the third-party verification. But for ISO, as you know, quality requires the third party who is coming to verify you also should have a detailed verification and validation system. Flexibility wise, I have made it several times very clear. GHG is flexible. That's why it is adopted by world over. While ISO offers a strict and well-defined methodology for GHG quantification, reporting, along with the verification. That's 1, 2, and 3, right? That's a 14,061 4 1 6 14,064 2 and 14,064 3. So these are the three different aspect, which is verification, reporting, and quantification. Is the those aspects are mentioned on those documents. Application, of course, it is widely used, GHG protocol, while ISO is used by organization who aims to confirm internationally recognized standard for GHG management, right? Certification, not a certification standard. GHG in itself is not a certification body, right? But it provides a guideline for GHG accounting and reporting, and that's why companies voluntarily do themselves and report the same. And framework like GRI, even BRSR allows for it. They do not ask that you need to verify right now in BRSR. In future, of course, BRSR is bringing third-party assurances on, particularly on carbon accounting. Now, ISO 14,000 series you have to understand, because I need to cover this before I go into GHG, that why ISO 14,064 takes a central stage as well. So what we have to understand, that key concepts in ISO 14,000 lies in a methodology called PDSA, which is Plan, Do, and Study and Act. Any international standard organization which is produced by ISO has this cycle. Okay, so this has they have inherited this from their 9001, and they follow all across. So it is a continuous improvement methodology cycle, which is always appreciated, and that's why it has a very clear-cut guidelines. So everything has started in 14,001, which is for the purpose of environmental management. Yeah, for environmental management, there is ISO standard called 14,001. Then came, of course, 14,004, which is a general guideline and principle system for supports technique. While ISO 14,006 is a guideline for incorporating eco-design. So this is for design purposes. While 14,015, if you look into that, it talks about assessment of site, right? So environmental impact assessment, sometime from 14,001, also takes some part of 14,015. Yeah, because environmental assessment of site and organization is this document carries that particular details. Then you have 1420, where environmental label and declarations are managed and governed. So you need to follow that. In 31, of course, environmental performance evaluation data can be captured, that how organization has performed on their environmental matrices and KPIs. While 4040 is critical one when you are talking about GHG. Why? Because this covers the life cycle assessment. Okay, so clear-cut, detailed policies and procedures are inbuilt in 14,040. While ISO 14,050 is a kind of vocabulary relating to different environmental science, so that is covered there. In 1463, they have covered environmental communication. Yeah, so what you need to communicate and why, that parameters are fixed here. And then you have ISO 1464, which is our focus, which governs the GHG accounting, verification, planning, as well as reporting. And a plan is where you put an objective and a strategy for your assessment. Do is where you implement that plan in form of putting documentation, procedures, as well as forms in the place, which collects the data. And then you study that data, analyze that data, identify the area of improvement, and then you again go for correcting those missed points, right? That's how any ISO standard work. And that cycle is called PDSA cycle. With that, we have covered 14,000 standards, but 14,064 has a unique quality, which we have to understand, right? So relationship of 14,000 different document, there are different document which relates to carbon accounting, which starts from 14,064-1, which basically talks about how you should design and develop the GHG inventory. So where to collect, what to collect, etc. lies here for the organization. While ISO 14,064-2 quantify and monitor and report emission reduction for removal enhancement. Okay, so that lies in the center, which gives you a way to monitor those particular data which we are requesting from different department. And 67, of course, talks about developing a CFP per functional unit basis, that how we should be covering it. And then you see all of them relates to GHG statement, and that GHG statement basically engages different stakeholder to collect the data. Once that part is done, of course, you need somebody to verify it, and that's the time where the documentation procedure of ISO 14,064-3 comes into action. Because their specification is there, guidance is there, that what we should verify, what how we should validate, what documentation should be provided specifically for greenhouse gas emission, right? And this whole thing gets governed by 14,065, which is a requirement for validation companies. Yeah, so if I am a validating company or auditing company, our governance will be in, is written in 14,065 and 66, that who is the competent competence requirements. So KPIs are set there, that what I should judge on, what I should, like, audit standards. These are the audit standards. Auditing procedure is 1464-3. Two is how to monitor, what to monitor, how to quantify, etc., is written there. And 14,064 and 1 is where you design this inventory, what to collect, where to collect, and how to collect. Clear? This is how the whole thing is applied. Of course, 14,064-1, which is a GHG inventory report or a statement, applies to entire organization. Yeah, you cannot exclude, which is the advantage in case of GHG. GHG, you can set a boundary, and that boundary will be based on your requirement. Let me give you some practical example here. If anybody has seen Reliance report, sustainability report, if they will read the Ready Racona in GRI, we say GRI Content Index. If you read that, you will realize that they have listed all 276 companies, which is their subsidiary, but they are reporting only for one company. Okay, that's a very interesting story there on the first 3 pages of Reliance report. Yeah, so they are following GHG protocol, so they are just considering one entity, and GRI allows them to exclude others and disclaim it, put a reason why you are not covering. So they have written a reason not covered. As simple as that, right? So that in that case, you cannot do ISO 14,064, because it recommends all departments should be complied, all subsidiary, if it is 100%, should be complied, etc., etc. So boundary setting here is little rigid. Still, people find a way out. They borrow from GHG and apply it here and get out of that mess. But generally, it is applied to the entire organization report. Or you can say, I am only doing one asset. Yeah, you can select that, but that again becomes that means you are not touching and checking or seeing your subsidiary. You have to clarify that as well in this case. Then selected group of assets, so you can group few assets, etc., etc. But for each of them, there is a different policy and different parameter which you have to state. Yeah, selected phase of project, etc. So this is 14,064, where you set the boundary, which is generally in this case is entire organization recommended. But if you decide not to do it, then you have to be very clear and you cannot mention anybody's company name. But GHG and GRI allows you to do that. 14,064 and 2 gives.
Vivek,
Yes, Rajni.
ये आपके फिगर में राइट साइड में you have mentioned about the relationship between these three. Can you just quickly explain this?
So again, same thing, I am repeating it
You
here.
have already done it, but somehow I have not been able to appreciate.
No, I'm saying that the relationship is that there is a documentation procedure which is sitting in 14,064 and 1. It is sitting there, right? That how to create a GHG inventory report. That is sitting in that document. What you do there is below box, the box with a little bit of wavy curve, right? That's what you are asking, correct? The relationship.
Yes.
So that box is actually what is sitting on the top. That's the relationship. So that is GHG inventory and report. Same thing I was saying in the left-hand side as well. And what you produce is GHG statement. Yeah. So greenhouse gas, that what is scope 1, how much is scope 1, how much is scope 2, and how much is scope 3. How you do it is the in-between line. You see, it is written engagement type consistent with the need of intended user who is going to read your report. According to that, you are collecting this data. That data is a part of GHG inventory report, which is coming from 14,064 and 1. Make sense now? Same thing goes to 2, same thing goes to 67 if you are applying.
About the below one, 65 and 66.
Below one, I told you
Arrow
that
the reversal.
that is there for the audit purpose. So once you have collected the data, somebody has to verify, then only you will get a certificate, right? For certification, you need a verification, correct? So how to do that
Now
verification?
the next question is, if you have a certified verifier, you need to have some qualification for
Of
verifying.
course, you have to get
Any
certified
consultant
by
can do
ISO.
it.
You have to get first certified as an internal auditor from ISO. There is a certification for for an auditor as well. It's a
Okay.
normal process, any quality stuff.
Just like any other quality audit.
Absolutely, any other quality audit, same procedure. And that also has a governing document, which is on the bottom, 14,065 and 14,066. So if I am getting certified as internal auditor, I need to comply other three ISO standard, which is 400, 14,065, 14,066, and I have to have a full understanding of 14,064-3. Then only I will get that certification. That's why a lot of people don't go in this kind of mess, because then you will be only a quality guy. You cannot do anything else. There's a volume, right? Huge understanding is required. Clear? And that is on the left hand side. I have explained in the detail. Let's go now to the GHG protocol, which is our focus, isn't it? Our whole focus today is going to be around it, and next couple of classes as well, because our focus is to calculate carbon emission from the organization, which is accepted by world over, right? So this particular segment will give you idea that what kind of different types of protocol are available, what are the key principles there, and effective accounting procedures. So let's go into greenhouse gas framework. As I have told you that in 1998, WRI, which is World Resource Institute, and WBCSD has produced a report which was titled as a Safe Climate and Sound Business. So the document name was not GHG protocol at that point in time. The document name was Safe Climate and Sound Business. If you go to WRI website, very interesting website, you should definitely subscribe to it. Okay, so they can send you all the recent development. So that's a first assignment for today. Every one of you should go to WRI website. You can Google it and you will find the detail, and subscribe to their newsletter. Yeah, so you will always get the updates, what is happening. Once you will go to their website, all documents are also available. Anyway, we will provide you the links, yeah, and the documents, the documents which we are going to use for the calculation purposes. And you have to have today, as anyway, end of today, you have to download that document, because tomorrow and day after, mostly tomorrow, I want to start little early, right? So we'll start at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, definitely we have to start early. So I will try to cover scope 3 in totality. Otherwise, it will take too much time. Okay. There is upstream and downstream as well. So before that, you need to read one of the document which I will share with you. Okay. And that document is again coming from WRI. Make sense? Assignment is clear. You have to go to a WRI website, subscribe to their newsletter. I will send you a document which you need to read, corporate GHG protocol. I will send you that. Yeah. And I will also send you scope 3, which I believe you will never get time because it's a 100-page document, but I will just send it to you for ready reckoner. So when I'm talking about it, you can refer those pages. Yeah, we have to depend on those books. Those, otherwise it will be a cardinal sin if we don't read it. I'm going to summarize it in 2 hours, but you need to have a knowledge of all parts. Make sense? Okay, let's start. Origin is clear. Purpose is also clear. This is used for accounting, reporting, and management, which has a need consistent, a consistent measurement. So consistent measurement is whatever I'm measuring last year, I'm making sure this year I'm definitely measuring that, plus any new development. That's why consistent word is critical here. And the reason again is for the emission reduction effort. So any effort I have taken, that will be reflected and people can compare. And that's why principle of greenhouse gas framework also become a critical item to understand, right? Ensuring credibility and comparability is a key item for greenhouse gas protocol. And that is the advantage of greenhouse gas protocol. Because if you have produced your report based on this, then you can compare with other companies' report. Are you with me on this? Otherwise, if you are using ISO and another company, generally people do not do ISO, it's very stringent, then you are left with no comparison that either you are doing good, bad, or ugly, right? You cannot judge yourself. So comparability and credibility both comes when you use GHG protocol. Key component of the protocol is emission calculation, which we will learn now, which gives a different type of calculation, quantification, and GHG emits. Second component is data verification of the same. So it also advises you how to verify those numbers. So it doesn't have a different separate document to verification. Inbuilt, they have created a system. So there are different type of data collection, tier 1 collection, tier 2 collection, tier 3 collection. That itself establishes, are you verifiable or not? Are you with me? That's why people use it. So you read one document, 100 pages, but once you have understood it completely, you have been safeguarded. And of course, last part is reporting. So how to communicate your emission information to public at large. These are the three critical documents which generally we use whenever we do greenhouse gas accounting. Left-hand side is corporate value chain. This document will be shared by me. You can also download it from the website, which is WRI. I think it's wri.org. So this document basically talks about scope 3. Actually, the pictures are different. So ignore the picture differences. There is a corporate accounting. So actually that picture itself is wrong. There is a corporate level GHG accounting document which tracks the overall emission across all operation. So that documents basically defines that what you should calculate when we are inside the manufacturing campus or service campus. It covers emissions here in this document, in corporate level GHG accounting document. They categorize emission into 3 different parts, which is scope 1, 2, and 3. How they scope 1 and 2 and 3 comes in play, we will discuss it in the next couple of slides. 3, they have a detailed document because 3 itself has 15 different category to measure. And that's why on the right-hand side, a vertical column, you will see scope 3 accounting standard, which is value chain standard, right? It is a separate booklet, not book, you should say, it's a booklet, right? So here you just see the classification, and then also you learn how to quantify the total emission to help company measure, manage their carbon footprint. And then there is a separate documentation on product life cycle or product level GHG accounting, right? So per unit basis, if I want to know how much like this Apple phone, right? It has a carbon footprint. Now, if I'm measuring at the company level, then it will be approximate I can allocate to this because my company also produces, I think it also produces earpods, right? It's called earpods, right? No, it's a different name. I don't remember it. So this has a separate production which is happening in same company. So for example, I have calculated my greenhouse gas footprint of my company and I wanted to allocate this to this product. I will do an approximation. That's why GHG accounting and ISO both brought a different policies for product level calculation. Here, I will only calculate how much material, what kind of effort, and how much energy and value chain requirement has gone into manufacturing this particular iPhone, right? And then I can allocate it proper. And that is the center one, which it covers. Clear? If that is clear, let's go to those 5 critical principles with GHG. Okay,
Suman, yeah, sorry. So, can you go to the previous slide? Just a question like, okay. So, if a company is going for GHG, accounting, they want to publish, they do only partial, they have the choice to do partial, or they have to do all the 3 accounting, like corporate level, product level, and value chain.
So
So
please
how?
understand, this is not a mandatory document, right? This is a
Okay.
document guidance document. So decision is going to be always yours. Whether you want to do 1, 2, 3 is governed by that reporting frameworks like GRI, TCFD, CSRD. Like CSRD makes sure that you calculate a scope 3.
Yes.
That is a framework. But GRI doesn't again forces you to calculate it. You can
Yes.
calculate and not report even. It allows you. But BRSR asks you total emissions. Again, people right now, it's not mandatory or there is no penalty. People are avoiding reporting scope 3. So those flexibility comes from the framework. This is inside the framework. This is sitting inside the framework, right? It's not a framework in themselves. This is only for the purpose of environmental calculation, environmental carbon emission calculation. So
Yes.
these document provides you a guideline and equip you, Ramesh ji, to calculate those numbers, that how much my carbon emission is and my footprint is, yeah, or my product is emitting. But it doesn't tell you what you should do and what you should not do. But when you are using ISO, it will create such kind of conflicts. Yeah. So be careful. That's why people get worried about, because their boundary creation, they have means 14,064 and 1 talks about it, but not very clear. Here we will learn today there are three different models to just set the boundary. Yeah. Let's go ahead and look into that. But before we go there, let's understand five governing principle. If you want to comply with GHG protocol for your carbon accounting purpose, you need to make sure you are adhering to these five principles. The first principle is relevance. So, how we say that is RCC. If you know, the slabs are generally made of reinforced cement concrete. That's the short form of RCC. Yeah, if you have ever built your house or has seen somebody constructing house, they will always talk about in these terms. And means doctor must be knowing, Rajni ji must be knowing all the slippers which are made in the track where your locomotive passes, right? The cement structure which is on the
Sleeper.
bottom,
Yeah,
that is
place,
also RCC. Yeah, reinforced cement concrete.
place concrete sleepers.
Correct. Sleepers. Yeah, absolutely. So those are also RCC. So that's a short code for first three governing principle, which is relevance, completeness, and consistency. Right? Why these principles are important are listed in left-hand side, where we have established that these five guiding principles are the one on which GHG protocol is based. Right? It is a global standardization which has been done, and that's why everybody is following who reports under it. Right? This gives a uniform approach for the reporting of the emission which I am calculating. Otherwise, uniformity will be missed. Why it happens? Let's take the standard number one, the principle number one, which is relevance. Relevance objective we have to understand. Relevance objective is that it ensures the GHG data is relevant for decision making purpose. In ISO, we talked about user, right? It's a user-defined data. So a stakeholder is requiring that I want how much this product is emitting carbon. I need to know. Then I will stick to the product reporting. But here, the decision making can decide that I want company-wide as well as product-wise. In that case, that the relevance of data collection become important. Clear? What kind of activity data you collect here? So data must be relevant for the operation and supply chain. These are the only two parts you should be concerned about. For example, if I'm doing in a building, right? I'm in a building and I want to calculate the building, in this building, how much carbon is emitting. All relevant emission sources like diesel generator, which is sitting outside of your building, HVAC, the AC duct, etc. Electricity consumption of that building, leakage from the fire extinguisher, because fire extinguisher slowly depletes its value. That's why you need to replace it, right? Those are the fugitive gases we were talking about earlier, should be included whenever I talk about building carbon emission calculation. That's the relevance. Here, of course, emission factor must match those activity data. So if I'm saying fugitive gases, I'm talking about fire extinguisher here, then emission factor should relate with fire extinguisher data calculation. For example, it should be fuel specific, gas specific, regional specific, because in certain Maharashtra, 20 rupees per unit of electricity, yesterday we were talking. In Delhi, it's zero virtually, right? Some people pay, but virtually it is zero. Bangalore, it is zero for half of the population who are local. They do not pay. Rameshji, I don't know whether you pay electricity charges or not. But people who are using beyond 3,000 units, of course, they have to pay. So those kind of regional specific data also should be relevant. So all the data which you calculate has to be relevant. Second is completeness. So RCC, second is completeness. And remember, RCC TA, that's how we summarize all five of them. So completeness talks about you ensure that you have covered everything. So you are not being very specific about your data collection. Here example is if companies operating in multiple countries, right? So we are talking about Unilever. So it has a presence of more than 140 countries. What I can do, I cannot send my team to African country or Somalia, etc. So I will say that, look, I'm excluding Somalia. You cannot do that and say that the total emission by Unilever is so much. If you have not included particular country, you need to be specific about it, right? And tell them upfront that, look, I have missed two countries because they are right now inaccessible for my team to go there. That will show people that you have done a data, but it is incomplete data. So at least it will give people a understanding of it. That's why completeness is very critical again, right? Third is consistency. So whatever data you have produced, you make sure and ensure that the changes of methodology of data collection should be reported. For example, last year I have manually collected the data, right? So I was able to collect data with a frequency of 3 months because I cannot do every day. This year I deployed IoT and I'm collecting every hour, right? In that case, you need to document that I have not maintained my consistency. This year, the last year it was a quarterly reporting data. This year it is every data which has been averaged out or total to the number which I am reporting today. Clear? That is third one under RCC, which is consistency. The other two are TA, right? Traveling allowance generally we say. Again, you can relate to IRCTC. TA is everybody use whenever they travel with your, when they buy from IRCTC their tickets. So TA is transparency, which is the number fourth principle. Here, you need to make sure that you provide stakeholders with a credible and easily understandable information. Don't give them in Chinese. Give them in English or Hindi. Tell them in kilojoule, kilowatt, whatever, make it a standard because that you have done in part of consistency. Consistency also means this, right? That you are using same unit every year, every quarter, every area of life. So if I'm talking about energy management, I will convert everything into kilojoules. Under BRSR, it is recommended you should convert into kilojoules. Okay, so you convert that and people understand the kilojoule all across. Otherwise, what people can do, I have electricity bill by units. So I will give them the number of unit I have consumed. I have a DG set where I'm consuming, diesel. And now that diesel, I'm converting directly to tons of carbon CO2. So I'm not giving how much of kilojoule of electricity I have consumed through DG. That is a possibility, but convert them everything in later on to tons of CO2 equivalent. So make sure that transparency is very clear and which comes from two parts. One is that you have produced a credible stuff. Whatever you are producing in your carbon accounting has a linkage, has a paper trail. And secondly, it is easily understandable, right? Last one is accuracy. Accuracy, GHG data should be accurate, and that's a mandatory requirement. If it is not accurate, then you have to tell them why it was not accurate last year or this year and give a proper information about it so that the decision maker can understand that there is no overestimation or under reporting of the carbon emission, right? It's very critical. So actual energy usage data, such as utility bills, should be used to ensure that there is a precision in the reporting. Clear? That's your RCC traveling allowance.
Can you
Make
show
sense?
the previous slide for a minute?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Let's go
Yeah.
ahead
Thank you. Thank you.
now. 5-step model. Okay, so this is a ESG Pro 5-step model. It is applied to scope 1 and 2 calculations, emission calculation, and you can apply it to any industry, any operation. As long as you want to follow GHG protocol, you can use these 5 steps because it covers everything. Yeah, and it's our proprietary model. Of course, we have yet to patent it, but right now we are in that process. What I'm going to cover in this part of the module 2 is okay, so national framework, which we have already covered. International framework, we have already covered. National framework was, tell me if you remember from yesterday class. 3 national frameworks we have covered yesterday. Anyone? Come on.
I think US ETA,
EPA,
European
EPA,
ETS,
GHGR,
and
GHGR.
Indian carbon credit.
Absolutely, European standard ETS and Indian standard, which we are following now. So those were national. International, we have already covered GHG Protocol and 14,064. And now we are going to cover the ESG Pro Mastery Institute 5-step model. These are the 5-step models which we are covering here, and with a real-time example. And one of the example is already been shared with you. How many of you have prepared your case study for presentation? Tell me that now.
Yeah.
Have you prepared, Rajni ji?
स्लाइड नहीं बनाया बट लिखा है.
अच्छा, कोई problem नहीं. Who else? Because I want that to listen in first, and then we will go into this particular cycle, which is ESG Pro 5-step model cycle.
I
Who
have
else?
also read and written my notes, sir. So I
Perfect.
can.
Perfect. Good, Manish. Good. What about Brinda?
No, sir, I'm still not sure about case studies.
Okay,
Still
so I
figuring
will
it
give a 5-minute break, not now, after 10 minutes, once I will complete this 5-step. I will give a 5-minute break. Subodh ji, Vrinda, and Ramesh ji, if you have not done, please read it quickly and make your understanding.
Okay.
Otherwise, the whole exercise will be futile. Because we have to work, right? We are not attending
Yeah.
fun. Right? Fun, so anyway, I'm making it, but your responsibility, you learn it, right? It's a flip class. So we will give you a 5-minute break after I complete these 5 steps, and then we will come back and have a presentation from you, and then I will go and solve that case. Make sense? Perfect. Okay, let's understand the ESG Pro 5 steps and what it covers. So ESG Pro 5 steps covers, first it start with defining the boundary. Any GHG inventory exercise means what to calculate, how, where to calculate. Inventory is inventory, right? What is there in your kitchen is inventory. What is there in your company, which you use as a spare part or for your operation, is an inventory. Inventory can be raw material inventory can be finished product as well. Similarly, for carbon accounting, you need to create a boundary so that your GHG inventory can be verified and validated. Very critical step 1, defining boundaries. There are 2 types of boundary you have to understand. First boundary is organizational boundary. What does that mean? Anybody can give a try? Organizational boundaries. What does this mean? And there is operational boundaries. So organizational boundary, let me tell you, organizational boundary is what is my premise, right? Organization, up to where I control. That defines the organizational boundary. When I'm talking about operational boundary, I talk about, and there is a double T there, just ignore it. We are talking about how my process works and what all I control, what I can't control. Here scope 1, 2, and 3 gets defined. Where? Anyone? Where I should fit in operational boundary? Scope 1, 2, and 3. Where I should fit it in?
One.
Operational boundary. In operational boundary, you have 1, 2, and 3. 1 is my own premise, where I'm controlling directly. 2 is where I have a little control because I'm purchasing from there. And 3 is, of course, I have no control. They are into my value chain, upstream or downstream. Clear? That is operational. But when I'm talking about premises, my control, financial control, my operational as a control, not as a direct control, then I'm talking about organizational boundary. Organization, absolutely. That's the number 1 step. Number 2 step talks about reporting framework. Reporting framework means what? You have to choose a specific framework and time frame. Here, time frame is more important. That what is my reporting period and which reporting standard I am using. For example, we are using right now GHG protocol, right? So we will stick with GHG protocol as a framework. I will follow those guidelines which are written in those 2 books. Corporate book, corporate GHG greenhouse gas protocol booklet, and scope 3, value chain scope 3 booklet. These 2 booklets definitely I will use. Clear? I have to mention there. That is the step number 2. And why I'm using these two things, the time frame and the specific framework, in order to establish my emission measurement. Third one is, of course, I have to identify the location where carbon emission is happening. And then I have to create a system to collect the activity data. So different types of data I need to collect, maybe financial, maybe non-financial, but I need to collect in order to really measure that how much carbon is getting emitted from that activity. The actual measurement and calculation happens in step 4, where you select relevant emission factor and perform emission calculations. Here, there are two activities you do. One, the data which has been collected in step 3, you convert into similar units. And in order to do that conversion, you need to find the right emission factor. Each area of activity, even each area of operational boundaries, has a different kind of emission factor. And it might not come from single book. It can come from different service providers, DEFRA, there are several names to it. And that is step number 4. We will learn that. And the last one is step 5, where you are reporting in a manner so people can understand. And then you do the verification as well. Clear? These are the ESG 5-step model. Simple as it sounds, difficult when you start doing it. And that's why we will go into nitty-gritty. Let's start with step number 1, which is defining the boundary. Defining the boundary, of course, there are 2 types, as I told you, which ensures that you are collecting the point number 5. What was the principle number 5? Principle number 5 of GHG protocol. Anybody remembers?
RCCTA.
Accuracy, right? Accuracy. Correct? Am I wrong there?
Yes,
Yeah,
accuracy.
accuracy, yes.
Correct? Good. So accuracy is the TA. So RCCTA, A is important, and that's why to have an accurate reporting, you need this boundary to be very clear. And which 2 boundaries? Organizational boundary and operational boundary. Now, organizational boundary has 3 different types, means approaches, different approaches through which you set the organization boundary so your calculation doesn't go wrong. Which are those boundaries? Equity share approach, operational control approach, and financial control approach. 3 approaches. Equity share approach, which is kind of financial in nature. Operational control approach, which is based on the vision and mission of the company and how they operate. And financial control. Clear? These are the 3 ways through which you set the organizational boundary. And you know, based on whatever data you have collected and calculated, you know which is you need to report and which is you should not report. Operational boundary on the second side sets the boundary based on scopes. Means, is it my scope? Is it somebody else's scope? Or is it totally not my scope, which is scope 3, right? मेरे कवरेज में है और मेरे कवरेज में नहीं है, that is the decision. Is it a direct emission? It is an indirect emission, comes into operational boundary. So organization boundary and operational boundary actually defines which part of a company, including subsidiary, joint venture, business units, are covered in this report, which is GHG report, ensuring that there is an accountability to that particular person or the company or management. And there is a transparency as well that, look, I can't control this part, and that's why this is not my operational, I'm not reporting on it. And that is why you need to be clean that which method you are using and how you have calculated it. Let's see some examples now, practical example, and then we will do some calculation today. So be ready with your calculator, mobile, etc. So you can do it together. It's very simple mathematics calculation we will do. So don't worry. You don't need calculator, but still I'm suggesting be ready with it. Let's first see the case of Tesla. Now I am going to take 5-minute break. Guys, please open the PDF. I will also open for you guys and read it for next 5 minutes. Right? And then after 5 minutes, I will start discussion. You have to present the case, and then we will do why they have set a boundary, which kind of boundary they are setting, which method they are using, and what was the reason for it. And also some numbers. So if somebody can remember number or good with it, please note it down. These are the 2 things we are going to do. Let me put it. It's in front of you, right? You can see it? No, you can't. You see it now? Who doesn't have a copy? Yeah, whoever is joining this as a, just a joining purpose. For you, I am putting on the screen. Otherwise, everybody has a copy of it. I will take a 5 minute quick break. We will be back by 8:05. Promise everybody will be back by then? Everyone, please, yes, no, anything.
Yes, sir. Yes, we are here only.
Sure, sure.
Yes, yes.
Okay, come back, come back. Let's start. So who wants to give their pitch first about the case study? What did you understand?
You
Rashmi,
decide.
why don't you go ahead?
Let me go ahead.
Yeah, please.
It's a very interesting case where the Tesla, who has been a leader in production of the electronic vehicles, they were producing a ZEV, an unnamed vehicle. In their annual report, they have submitted, uh, and they have been able. They were famous for buying the carbon credit. How this carbon credit accumulated, how this success story has originated, is because of this approach. So this approach where they have. They defined their boundaries, both the organizational boundary and the operational boundary, both. And in organizational boundary, they followed the operational method. So what they did, in fact, they have declared their carbon points very accurately in all spheres. When they were following the organizational boundary, they considered scope 1 and 2, which was within their control, and scope 2, which was not in their control, but they are also, they have invested good amount of money, like in renewable energy, etc. All spheres, production, sales, service center, from where they accounted almost 100% of the emission. And the method there they used was operational control. And when they were using this method of, they also considered the operational boundaries where they focused on all the three scopes. Scope 1 was emission from the Tesla owned equipment and operations, and the company owned vehicles also they have considered. And scope 2, the emission from the purchase of electricity, steam, or heating. Then in scope 3, upward and downward streams of the value chain, supply chain, transportation product they considered, and raw material also. So by doing this, they have done certain actions, like they replaced the gasoline vehicle, and then the lithium ion battery, though invited some criticism, but it was at that time it was a welcome step, and it could be a gainer point for the Tesla. It was correct reporting that was behind the thing, because they were considering, by this approach, they could consider uh, every possible carbon emission, and they measured it. Then, while following the operational boundaries, what they had, all scopes, as I said, that emission from the all scopes were followed, and this could bring lot of saving of the carbon dioxide equivalent. From another study, I have found that it is around 13.4 million metric tons of the carbon dioxide equivalent they could do it. They accumulated these points, then they finally sold to the units like General Motor and Fiat, etc. The good point is that, as we know, that the GHG protocol is voluntary, and it is on the regulation demand. It was very much in the regulation demand, so they could generate a lot of revenue. The revenue which they generated in 2020 was nearly 1.58 billion dollars, which is which contributed to good amount of a profit for them. And the efforts taken by the Tesla is important, because this was able to help in evolving the market, and they acted as a catalyst for doing that, and this was in compliance. Uh, though the carbon trading was the reason behind that, it could bring them business profitability and responsibility. Its correlation with Donald Trump, I will not comment here now, but I personally feel that nothing. They have other business revenue streams also. This is not the only business stream. This only contributed to enhancement in the profitability. So perhaps even if the kind of deregularization which Mr. Trump brought at that time may impact this very slightly.
Okay.
Since our focus here is this carbon points, so this is one of the unique method and a success story of that.
Perfect. Thank you. You have included a lot of other data than the case as well, which was helpful. I hope people have followed it. Thank you very much. Another person who wants to go next? Two more person, because then we have to go back to understanding those scope 1, 2, 3. One more person who wants to go next and give your point.
I will start, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So Tesla in their 2022 impact report, they basically divided this the approach by bound. They set the approach by setting two boundaries, like organization and operational boundaries. And in operational boundaries, they choose the operational control approach, where they told that in operational, they accounted all the 100% of emissions. Where in operational, they included gigafactories, sales offices, service centers, etc. And in organizational boundaries, uh, where they accepted the operational control approach, where even there they accounted all the 100% emissions. And in that, they included all the sites engaged in manufacturing, sales, services, delivery, and others. Others are where consists of R&D, administration, energy product warehousing, and other where mixed use warehousing. And here the difference is in operational, all scope 1, 2, and 3 are covered, emissions are measured. And in organizational, only scope 1 and 2 is measured. And what we can see is in scope 1 they have got the 185,000 metric tons of equivalent CO2 they have measured, and scope 2 4 lakh 3,000 metric tons of CO2 they have measured. And at last what they have done is they have all through these efforts Tesla's have this boundary approach resulted in customer driven CO2 savings, which was around 13.4 million metric tons. And through this approach, they enhance the accuracy of sustainability, because if there is any problem or there is any issue, uh, usually we stuck in the how to solve that issue. So by finding an way dividing it properly, like organizational operational boundaries, the accuracy improves. That is what this approach
Perfect. Perfect. Good job done, Manish. Manish, what Rajni did is she gave a context to it. You just gave the bare data, which is also good. Good job done. Okay, who wants to go next? Everybody has to try at least. That is recommended. One more person. Who wants to go next? Your point of view.
Yeah. So, Vivek ji, just want to add, both of them gave a summarized, very good summary about. So probably the one of the thing important is the by setting the boundary, they can clearly, Tesla can show that, measure and manage its emission more accurately. What happens is, if you see that the scope 1 is 185,000 metric tons, and correct me, that is only 0.185 million tons, and the scope 2 is 0.4 million metric tons, but the highest emission is where the 22.3 million tons. So if you see the compare with the scope 3, the scope 1 and scope 2 are actually very less, and they could concentrate more on that, where the battery sites, which probably they would have got the outsource, the supply
Battery
chain.
Correct.
Yeah,
Value chain,
yeah,
battery production. True.
yeah, that they could concentrate, and what are the effectiveness they can do, so that setting the boundary can make them where they want to reduce that, they can do the based on this
Perfect. Perfect, Ramesh ji. Subodh ji, quick 1 minute summary. Any other point which you want to add, or you support all of us? All of us. Subodhji, quick, unmute yourself and just tell. What do you understand by this case?
So in organization boundary that they have accounted for 100% emission. Second is the further method is operational control. In 100% emissions, they have included all manufacturing sites under their control, all sales offices and service center.
Absolutely.
When we
Added
talk, so
sales and
this is
service.
in very brief. Then
Right.
we talk about the operational boundary. They have included all scope 1, 2, and 3. In
Right.
scope 1, 0.185 million tons of CO2 equivalent is there, while scope 2 is 0.403 million tons, and
Correct.
scope 3 is which is very
22.
huge. So you can neglect scope 1 and 2 for time being, which is very high, 22.3 million tons. But while if you talk about 22.3 million tons, the saving is 13.4 million tons by using their EV vehicles and this.
Correct.
So
That's
the
the important point.
net is hardly 9 million tons, which they have to take as their target to reduce the CO2 equivalent.
Reduction is
So it's a very huge saving they have done, and so I think by doing that, as per the data of 2022, I think 9 million ton saving will be very easier for them compared as they
so
have
it will
already
be very
saved 30
difficult.
million ton.
Okay, what I differ from your two statement, one is scope 1 and 2 is negligible. We should
At
neglect.
timing, I have told
Neglect
for
is not
time
the
being
point.
till they attack scope 3 because it is very huge.
Advantage is in scope 3 that a small improvement also will bring lot of million
Yeah,
tons down.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the advantage. Good job done.
Yeah,
Brinda,
yeah.
quick 1 minute summary.
I already put in chat actually
Oh,
when
you did
started
it.
your.
Okay, I didn't
Oh,
see
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, you were writing something.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, I was saying that in the crux, I can say that how important is product design because they have focused on scope 3. If we highlight like customer driven CO2 saving. So, rather than focusing on their operations like scope 1 and scope 2, and people like firms would generally avoid scope 3 because like there are 15 categories and all those stuff.
Correct.
But here, like they have like twisted it and given more on like how our
Yeah.
customers are using the product and doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Sorry,
like
I want to add one
yeah.
more point. One more most important
Please,
point
please,
is that
please.
what their product is going to generate CO2 because of emission. So they
Yeah.
have to more focus on their product more than their manufacturing
It is a
activities.
part of their
Yeah.
customer experience. Wonderful. Good job done. You guys have picked up the real stuff there. Let me go back to the presentation now and tell you now in theory how it works, okay? Because that also is our focus, isn't it? So let's go for module 2. Yeah. And best part was that we had a consensus that what is right and what is wrong. Once the screen is visible, just let me know. So as you know, the background of this case was there is a global leader in electric vehicle and energy solutions. And the end which everybody covered was they have, because of this electric vehicle and they focused on scope 3, they were able to show improvement. Otherwise, that scope 1 and 2 is more rigid as well. It requires a lot of effort and compensation. It might be there unavoidable. You remember yesterday we were going in detail of Microsoft, avoidable and unavoidable gas emissions and how can you compensate by offsetting, etc. That may be the case here. So you cannot actually touch this 185 or 403, but they were able to touch the 22.3 million tons by just tweaking. Means, of course, they are selling a vehicle which can create a credit.
One more, sorry to add.
Go
The one
ahead, go
more
ahead.
point is that the scope 1 and scope 2 is going to create CO2 emission at particular point, while scope 3 will be globally because their
Absolutely.
vehicles will be going across the globe
Everywhere.
and that will have more impact on the globe.
And when we will discuss tomorrow mostly scope 3, and today we will start at least, we will try to, you will see that these all parts are covered, that international boundary. Okay, let's start with first part, which is organizational boundary. This one I will explain you with another example. Okay, so this is another case study, and I brought my own company as a case study here. So case study is all about organizational boundary, which refers to the limit which emissions are measured, within which limit you will measure the emissions. So M&A Experts Advisory has three categories. You have to first understand that. So we have a holding company, which is M&A Experts Advisory. And then we have two companies there. One is M&A Experts International Private Limited, and one is our mentoring company, which is ESG Pro Mastery Institute. So holding company is in top. Holding company has decided to do GHG carbon accounting. Okay, greenhouse gas this year we want to calculate. What we did is we went into our operational company. Now, holding company is a virtual company, right? Which just takes the data, consolidate, and report. Yeah, or GST when you pay to M&A Experts. But we have an international private limited company which operates even in Oman. We have an operation in Oman. We have a representative office in USA. This is for investment banking, consulting, due diligences, etc. ESG due diligence, etc. We do here. But training institute does the training. Now, maximum emission happens in M&A Experts because we have three different offices. But ESG Pro doesn't have so much of emission. You can see that number-wise, you can see there, right? 10,000 is happening because we have three offices, so I have to calculate all three offices emission. But when it comes to ESG Pro Mastery, it is run mostly by me and few of the other team members who joins me. So if I calculate their metric ton output, it is very small compared to the international operation. But there is a challenge. The M&A Experts, I have 50% control on it and 50% owned by my partners, right? Who are sitting in Oman or US or in Chennai. So they control it. So that is my trouble here, that equity share, I only own M&A Experts Advisory as a holding company, owns only 50% of international, M&A International. But ESG Pro, as I run it, so I am a holding company, I am a training company, so I hold 100%. Up to here, there is any doubt? Are you guys able to follow simple equity understanding?
This control is from the financial point of view, not
financial.
from the
Equity
emission
is financial. I own 50%. Other people, my wife owns 50% kind of stuff. You got my point, yeah? In M&A Experts International. But ESG Pro, I own 100% because that's my brainchild. Clear? If we talk about operational, I have full financial control. All finances are done here in India. So I decide how much we are going to invest in advertising, how much we are going to invest in marketing, how much we are going to invest in projects. All that decision I make on the finance side. So I receive the bills, even it is getting billed in Oman or Dubai. I get that bill, I prepare it, and it comes to India account, and then we distribute it. So I have a full financial control. But I don't have operational control, isn't it? I cannot go and sit in Oman that what Michael Katz is doing. I can't do that. It's a micromanagement. So he's running his show. He prepares a bill. He sends it to India based on project to project, and we disperse them out. This is M&A Experts International Operation. Clear? So you have understood three parts of it. One is the equity control, which is how much of equity control I have in M&A? Anyone? How much of equity based?
50%, 50%.
Absolutely 50%. How much of financial control? The operation of finance?
Full,
100%. And what about operational? I have no control.
No
because international,
control.
how they operate is they decide. If I operate in here, in India, it's a part of M&A Experts Advisory, not a part of international. Clear?
Yes.
But when it comes to Pro Mastery Institute, I have 100%. So equity control is 100%. And both financial and operational, there is again a spell check. Sandeep, we need to check the spell checks all the time. Full operational control is the third line. So we have a full operational control also on ESG Pro. The question which I have for you, and this is how we are going to learn today, and that's why you need a calculator with you. You see a calculator with me? You can use your mobile calculator because the calculation will be very simple. Trust me. But what you need to answer me is, what is the total emission of M&A Experts Advisory as a holding company? Based on all three methods, you have to tell me that. And then you need to tell me which you think will be most appropriate to use. There is no right or wrong answer here. Because all three methods will give you three different number. Which number you will trust most, you need to tell me. Clear? That's the exercise. Shall we go ahead and calculate? Everybody's ready
Yes.
with their mobile calculator or computer
Yeah.
calculator or whatever. Right?
Yes.
Are you ready? Let's go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so let me delete the answer then. Otherwise, you will be confused with the answer. I don't want you to be confused. Okay, we are ready. Okay, this is the tabular format. I am just showing you that how the calculation starts. So you put everything in a table based on each method, because we are doing organizational boundary, not the operational boundary. Operational boundary is what? Scope 1, 2, and 3. We saw in the Tesla case. But we are now helping M&A experts. You help Tesla, now you help M&A to calculate based on 3 methods. What is the total for this year metric ton of carbon output for based on each method? So tell me, go ahead. I have done half of the calculation for you, but this is how you have to lay out your calculation. Rest of the calculation you to tell me. Based on equity method, what is the M&A experts advisory as a holding company emission is? Do it fast. It's very simple. Only addition you need to do, right? Manish, what will be the answer for equity share method? What is the total emission by holding company? You want me to explain? No problem. If you want me to explain, I will explain all 3 methods and show you the calculation. Shall I go ahead? Or anybody wants to try?
You please go ahead, sir.
Okay, let me.
30% कैसे होगा equity? You hold the ESG Pro Mastery में तो you have 100% equity share, ना?
Correct. Good job. Good job done. Yeah. Good job done there. That's my mistake. Let me correct that. Purposefully we have kept it so that you can tell me if I made a mistake. Perfect job done. And that is why, is the screen visible?
No, not yet.
Okay. Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I am saying is first one.
One.
Wait. Let me now share the full screen so I can calculate with you guys. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So पहला है 100%. That's the major mistake. You corrected me. Any other mistake you see in this?
Calculation गलत हो गई ना फिर.
Absolutely. ये तो पहला correction वही करना है. ESG Pro is 100%, so I have to take 100%.
तो 5,000 ही होगा ना उसका तो.
बिल्कुल, वो भी आ रहा हूँ मैं. अभी total tons of CO2
10,000 हो.
equivalent for year 2023. That's what we are calculating. So of course this number need to be changed. कितना आएगा यहाँ पे?
5,000.
Absolutely. Total is how much now?
10,000.
Correct. Second, is this numbers correct?
No, financial control is also 50%. 100%, sorry. Financial is
100%, sir.
100%. Oh, yeah, it is 100%. So
This
this is
number is correct?
15,000.
फिर यहाँ से बात
Yeah,
कर रहे हैं.
15,000.
Yeah, 15,000.
Yes.
Okay. What about this one? Is this 0% correct?
Yes.
Is this 100% correct?
Yes.
So how much is total?
5,000.
You see, this is how people play. You were asking me, somebody was asking me in first or second day that how people are playing with these numbers. Some company doesn't want to report very high carbon emission. They play
Yes.
here. Where they play? They play here. Which method they are using?
Maybe the method.
They play in the methods. But what is your opinion? Each of you, I want
It
to
means
select.
Tesla ने जो operational control method किया है, तो they played a game.
Sorry, come again.
Tesla
हाँ.
has followed the operational control method for the same set of.
उसने ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में तीनों मेथड यूज किए हैं. Organizational boundary set करने में he has used all three method. When he came to operational boundary setting, he has used scope 1, 2, and 3. Both are different. Okay. Name is same, so people too tend to confuse. Operational control method लिया है कि नहीं लिया है.
But his focus was more on the scope 3, so he could win.
That is because you see, operational control may, of course, scope 3 is not your scope. Correct? Here also,
Yes, yes.
operational control is the Foxconn is totally controlled by Apple? No. Apple tells them that this is my design. These are the equipment I am buying on your behalf. You just assemble and give it to me. Do I control Foxconn operation in China? Apple controls Foxconn operation in China? No. There were several claims by laborers that they are not allowing to go for toilet and bathroom. Yeah, once you are inside that Foxconn factory, assembling the mobile unit, you are not allowed to go out because there were a lot of risk as well, which Apple pushed them for. Yeah, that my design should not be copied, nobody should take a photograph, etc. So they were not allowed mobile. They were not, even in India, you must have heard a case just 2 months ago in Coimbatore or Madras, a Foxconn plant. There was a Siemens plant. Definitely there was a strike. The big strike has happened in Siemens. Samsung, sorry. Samsung was, there was a huge fight, not fight, a strike. And before that, Apple also had a problem with women working there. The married ones were not been allowed. Yeah, discrimination was happening. All that, can Apple control sitting in the US? No. However, they are bounded by Sarbanes-Oxley, that you cannot have slaves, you cannot have all that. You know, they have to report on Sarbanes-Oxley, all that stuff. Still, they are unable to control Foxconn because Foxconn is not controlled by them. And that's why in that case, they cannot take a responsibility of the assembly unit sitting in India and in China. You got my point? That is this scope, operational control scope. It also falls in a scope 3 because, okay, it is not my operational. That is why you understand, जब Tesla ने report किया, तो he is only reported scope 1 and scope 2 in organizational boundary. Do you remember? Anybody remember that?
Yeah.
They didn't
And
remember.
secondly, he has taken, in organization code also, he has taken all the manufacturing units under their control. They have specifically written.
So they have only reported for what? Scope 1 and 2, because organization boundary generally limits them to that part, right? And when you talk about operational boundary, then you have to consider those plants which are sitting outside your control as well. Make sense? So people play here first and then they play there. Clear? So scope 1 and 2. Now I want to know, each of you need to tell me which one you will take. If tomorrow you are doing that calculation, your own, out of this number from 5,000 to 15,000, which number will you choose?
Second only, 15,000.
Subodhji is taking financial control, which is 15,000. Rajni ji.
I will take, as a manager, I would like to disclose the less carbon, so there's less trouble there for me.
Okay, so you will take which one?
I'll take operational control.
Third. Brinda, please tell me which one. First, second.
I'm not sure, but I think operational, because I can see like
There is no
what
right answer or correct answer. It is your
Okay.
thought process I want to know.
operational control, because like
Third
I
one.
can
Two people
manage
third.
it.
Good. We will look into reasons later. Ramesh ji,
I will take equity share.
first. Manish,
I'm not sure, sir, but I'll choose for equity share, sir.
so 2 people for equity, 2 people for operational, 1 person for financial control. Presley, Presley. Gaurav, what do you think, Gaurav? You have come for the first time. Which one will you?
I will go with operational control. The only reason is this is something I can target to reduce, which is in my control. Otherwise, the other things I may not be able to reduce over a period of time.
Okay. You have given a reason. However, I was not expecting reason. So three people have voted for operational control. The number is lower. But let me tell you one more theory and think about it. There is no right and wrong answer. You can always
I,
choose
I,
your own
I will
decision.
give one more point in
Yes,
control of financial control. So for anyway, if you have to control operationally also to reduce the CO2 emission, you require financial support. So if you have financial control, you can support more to reduce the carbon emission.
okay.
And
Which
you
is
can reduce, you can decide whether to make more profit for short term or for long term.
good. Only one principle, addition to your own faith and belief and experience. Over experience, you will learn which to choose. Yeah. There is no right and wrong. Few people claim they know which is right, but they are wrong, actually. They cannot debate with me. But only one parameter people use in this case, and which you should consider when you do and do it on practice, is whenever you are doing organization boundary setting, what is your objective? You are calculating scope 1 and 2 eventually, right? Your objective is I achieve my net zero in next 20 years. And any decision maker or a person who is responsible for looking after this whole initiative, they are not just there to calculate it, they are also there to mitigate it. Now, just imagine a scenario if you are sitting with only 5,000. Of course, it is under your control. You can do a lot of stuff, but how much of improvement you will show to your decision maker? If I am there on the board and you come and present to me next year, how much of improvement you can say? You can say 5,000 I have removed carbon dioxide from my company. And I will congratulate you. 5,000 multiplied by $100 a carbon credit. How much it will become? 5,000 पे 2 0 और लगा लो 5 लाख रुपए 5
5
lakh
0.5 million.
half a
Point,
million dollars, right?
half a
That's
million.
the improvement you will show me. What about 15,000 and 10,000? The guy who will be there, he can claim, first of all, he should be able to do improvement. If he is able to do improvement, he can always have a better room than you. Definitely he can control 5,000 because that is the operational control he can control. So 5,000 तो पक्का करेगा. Out of this 15,000 or 10,000 में से 1,000 extra also if he does, he will get a brownie point from the board of director. Make sense? That is the only
Yes.
parameter you should consider. The rest, your points are totally valid. And that decision is an ethical decision which you as a responsible person will be making in that company. Think about it. We will listen to it later.
सर आप माइक्रोसॉफ्ट वाला आप जरा उसको रिकॉल करें where you had said finally our intention is to achieve the net zero कि हमें इसको सिंक में लाना है
Correct.
तो 5,000 को सिंक में लाना ज्यादा आसान है बनिस्बत की 15,000 को
बिल्कुल मेरा पॉइंट
अल्टीमेट
ये है
कॉल तो
5,000
हमारी वही
तो
है ना
नहीं रजनी जी 5,000 तो किसी भी स्थिति में आप करोगे ना दैट इज योर अंडर कंट्रोल दैट इज इन द ऑपरेशनल कंट्रोल राइट you will definitely target that 5,000 once you will achieve that 5,000 how much of carbon credit you will achieve multiply by $100 I'm just assuming per tons of carbon is at $100 5 लाख रुपया अगर मैंने 15,000 पे टारगेट किया 5,000 तो पक्का करूंगा वहां भी 5,000 ऑपरेशनल कंट्रोल आई हैव 5,000 so I will definitely target that 5,000 but then if I am able to convince
मैनेजरियल डिसीजन सर इट इज नॉट द मॉडल डिसीजन वो मैनेजर का डिसीजन है कि मुझे कितना इंप्रूवमेंट दिखाना है अपने अंदर
absolutely that's the decision you are responsible for isn't it
मैनेजर का
as a carbon accountant that's what you are
किसी को
responsible
अगर इंप्रूवमेंट दिखाना है तो एक्सेल फिगर गिरा दो नेक्स्ट ईयर शील्ड लेके आ
you
जाओ
can't do that under consistency you will be caught
अनफॉर्चुनेटली हियर यू कैन नॉट
you can't okay so let's go to the step 2 that decision is up to you to think over it come back again and if you want to debate and discuss step 2 is setting the reporting framework okay here 3 parameters you need to consider the triangle which is on right hand side gives you that selection criteria. The first selection is framework selection. So based on the categorization emissions which you are reporting, you will select a framework which helps you the most to calculate it. Okay, if my focus is scope 3 emission, I would love to come to GHG. By the way, that's another advantage of GHG. They have a really clear directives for scope 3 emission calculations. ISO sometimes becomes too stingy there. Very difficult to calculate with ISO, because I don't know people how they do it, but they must be putting a lot of effort. Then comes the time frame. The second aspect of this GHG emission reporting is the time frame. You should be clever and consistent in your time frame selection. You need to establish a consistent period so that you can compare from last year, and as well going forward, it should make sense. However, if you are starting for the first time, you can even take 3 months of data and report about it. Make sure. Am I making sense here? I hope I'm clear there, right? And the third is the measurement framework as well. You need to align the measurement with organizational objective and structure. The mitigation and target setting, etc. part come into play. If you look into objective, of course, you have to define a consistent approach in this report setting framework. So that is the objective of this setting the right report framework, okay? That you have to have a consistent approach in the measuring emission on a time period, particular time period, so that the comparability and transparency is not compromised. Key elements here is, of course, scope classification, which we will look in B, point number B, where we are talking about scope 1 and 2 discussion. Measurement framework, of course, the GHG protocol and time frame. All these are guided by GHG protocol. Okay, let's go and present it. Then another case study which we want to talk about is IBM case study when you are setting the boundary. Now, IBM emission management happens on operational side with scope 1, 2, and 3. The data which they collect and the framework which they are using is, of course, GHG protocol they are using. Why I can say that with guarantee? Because, of course, it's mentioned in their report. If you will read that IBM report, which I will share post, because there is too much of overload, we don't want to overload you. So we will give you the IBM document, which has been referred here. It mentions very clearly that they are using GHG protocol, okay? Because it enables them to have a comparability. In each side, they have a specific data frame which they are using. For example, scope 1, they look into fuel combustion. That is the emission factor they look. And they also look into on-site vehicle use. How many vehicle are company providing to the employee and how many of employee bringing into the site. The moment employee bringing into the site, it becomes a scope 3 emission. Okay, remember that. If the company is providing vehicle to bring the people on site, then it is scope 1 emission. And what data point you will refer? You will refer the fuel combustion here and that emission factor of the same. Scope 2, of course, they are heavily dependent now on renewable energy and also region-specific emission factor they are using to convert those renewable energy into carbon emission. This is one of the very good example of net zero emission target by 2030. They have put a target by 2030 and their improvement year on year, specifically on data center, where the energy is consumed in the data center, which is a part of scope 2, is a very interesting stuff to see. Yeah. So if you really want to learn more about scope 2, please read the IBM report.
Sorry, Vivek ji, the data centers, if it is like how the data center, let's take some organization, they outsource the data center.
Yes, we
and
love
some
that.
they have their own data
We
center.
have already done that, Ramesh ji, in the case of Microsoft. Microsoft, what they did, slowly they have outsourced all their data center, correct?
Yes, I
And
missed
that's
that.
why
Yeah,
that-
I will join late. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Join late. Okay. So I will just explain to you once more that what Microsoft did is, if I think we have that, right? If you have not seen, let me quickly show you. Yeah. You see this light blue graphs?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, I was there.
These were the
Correct.
major data centers and supply chain gas emission, which is a part of scope 2. Whenever they own it, but the consumption of electricity happening at their place. So if it is, they don't own it, Equinox was the company which was owning their data center, it's a scope 3 emission, right? It is not a scope 2 emission. So that is why IBM is another good example for a scope 2 emission. Okay, so let's go back. So now how to identify different emission sources? Because whenever we talk about GHG inventory, we always talk about three things. Baseline setting, if you remember, we discussed that. Then we talk about the hotspot, emission source hotspot, right? To collect that hotspot, you need to first know where the emissions are happening. Yeah. And for that, this particular slide is helpful on the same. So purpose of identifying the emission sources, of course, it is essential to understand the full carbon footprint of a corporation. So if you really want to know exact carbon footprint of the company, you need to identify the right source, emission source. It helps in targeting efforts, the mitigation part, right? That how and where you can make more impact. Also, you can, if you know where the emission is happening, that helps. And in order to measure accurately scope 1 and 2, any organization should and must have to have identified their emission sources. This involves analyzing their operational activity, understanding the type of emission, and pinpointing where the emission is originating. The source identification can be done by following sources which are available. And these are the people who are providing the emission factor as well. Listen to me very carefully, very important sentence I made. The right-hand side, I'm talking about emission source identification. There are different documents which suggest you how to identify the source. And the same document will also provide you the emission factor, which we will use in step 4. Step 4, when I will go to step 4, the calculation part. 5-step model, right? So you start with defining the boundary, 2, setting the framework, but selecting the framework. 3rd, identifying the emission sources so that you can collect the right data at right point. Where I will find this help book? They are coming from IPCC, which is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Guidelines. These guidelines helps you to quantify the GHG emission in various sectors. So it is sector agnostic. And this is an international document. So everybody accepts it. Right now, AR6 is the most important document in IPCC. Which document? AR-6. So if you really want to read it, that how to identify emission sources, generally people don't read it. They use this as a ready reckoner. So wherever you need, you based on the industry, you open and go to that page and read it. Why you need to read it? Because step 4, emission factor will come from this document. Second ready reckoner is UNFCCC document. There is a reporting and tracking standard for emission, particularly under the Paris Agreement. Yeah, they have specified that where you should find what. Of course, details are not available. It's just a guiding document. If you really want to do from third party, you do not want to read all this document or use the ready reckoner. In that case, you can have UNFCCC, corporate GHG accounting software. There are several software now available, and they have already access to IPCC, DEFRA, all the sources, and they provide you also company specific. Why they have a industry specific, company specific? Because they know from that particular area, somebody, your peer is already using their software. Okay, so SEMA Pro and Gabi is one of the international softwares which people are using. In India, we are associated and we have MOU with Breathe ESG. They also provide the similar kind of market knowledge. क्योंकि आपको तो आपके इंडस्ट्री के लिए चाहिए, आपके फैक्ट्री के लिए चाहिए. Which one will be similar? Somebody working, say I have a factory in Noida and my competitor is also sitting in Noida, then my emission factor will be similar. So I want those data. For that, I need to pay. So there's a little costly approach. Generally, people don't do it if they are not large enough. If you are large enough, of course, you can have such kind of software. If you're not, you always rely on international data and they are enough, because these guys also initially use the original data and then slowly the system matured. Each scope has a different type of emission, and that's why different examples are given where from the emission happens. For example, scope 1 is a direct emission, so it has to be in owned by you, controlled by you, those operation or assets. And the example here is where you will get this data. You will get the data from company owned vehicle, like bus of the company, car of the company. They have kept it. On-site fuel consumption by your operation. Operation also use gas or diesel, that number, and process emission. The scope 2, of course, is indirect. So you need electricity from the grid. That number will be helpful. Purchase steam number will be helpful. Heating and cooling system number will be helpful. For a scope 3, which is other indirect emissions, you have to go to business travel, employee commuting, waste generated, transportation and distribution, use of sold product, end of life treatment, etc. These are the sources which you identify and use it. Other sources are, of course, this is how you report. Actually, your reporting happens. Scope 1 will have minimum of these 6 reporting areas. Okay, what are those areas? You first write a stationary combustion. A stationary combustion is what? Broiler, diesel generator, heater. They are sitting inside the premise, right? Ovens, if you are doing cooking or you are a Pizza Hut, then ovens also is a stationary combustion where the direct combustion is happening. So emission from fuel burned, you can get that bill and your data is there. Second is mobile combustion, which is company owned trucks, cars, buses, forklifts, delivery vans. If it is owned by the company, that data need to be found out. Then you have fugitive emission. I have already talked about it, chiller, HVAC system, fire extinguisher. Process emission is cement calcination. Yesterday we were discussing about the same, welding, steel production, etc. Agriculture emission is, of course, livestock, manure management, soil management. All that emission can be recorded under scope 1. Another scope 1 emission is also waste treatment. Sometimes people forget this part. The waste your process generates goes to a landfill, right? That data, landfill data, or sometimes you burn it, or your waste guy who collects from you also burns it. That data is also important for you to be reported under scope 1. Scope 2 is indirect emissions, which includes electricity, heating, cooling, and emission. All related data need to be collected and put into scope 2. This is exactly how you report, yeah, with numbers. Right now, I'm just giving you the data source, so I'm not giving the number. So scope 1 and 2 is very clear. Here, you have to collect that activity data. For example, for a stationary combustion, I just discussed with you, the coal, natural gas, diesel, these are the source, but the data, activity data is fuel bill, fuel spend data, fuel meter calculation, right? So in morning, what was my bus a kilometer? In evening, how much my bus kilometer? Kilometer multiplied by emission factor, I will get my carbon dioxide emission. I'm just giving a mobile combustion here. If I'm talking about boiler, of course, again, how much of gas has been supplied to boiler? What was the morning reading? What was the evening reading? Difference is my that day, year, that year. Fugitive emission, how many bottles of fire extinguisher I have kept it in the, I kept it in the factory. How many of those has expired at the year end? That much of quantity. Process emissions, similar. Production data, fuel bill, spend data, process meters, etc. can be calculated. Indirect emission, of course, you have electricity bill, spend data. These are the activity data source. So 2 things we have learned here: source and what exactly you take out from the source. Any confusion here? Because this is a very serious stuff. I covered it like a butter. So if you are stuck, please let me know.
For the data center, like let's take the servers or the equipments, getting emission, that comes under fugitive, the HVAC, how it comes like under which category?
So in data center, there will be 3 type of emission source minimum. There will be several. If I go to data center, I will look into 10 types, but 3 will be minimum, which everybody can understand. First is HVAC system. Now, HVAC has 2 points. One point is the energy consumed by HVAC, and second point is that refrigerant or cooling gases which are there, ammonia, etc., whatever is used there. That is the fugitive, right? So these 2 points will be collected there. So one will be the bill, electricity bill for HVAC system. And second will be that fugitive gases which has been emitted and you are replenishing it at certain period, right? घर का एसी में भी हम लोग replace करते हैं ना, we do replacement of the gas. You filled so much, some will be lost by year end. You call somebody and he fills it, or in 2 year, in 5 year, whatever frequency you have. But when you are using HVAC, that's one data source, but there are two data, activity data, which you are collecting. Ramesh ji, are you clear? Activity data and data source? 3
Yeah.
point B
Yes.
and 3 point
Yeah.
B. Second data source is your data of that, whatever, what do you call them? The racks. Racks has that processing unit, right? So they also consume a lot of electricity, isn't it? They consume electricity. There are fan, there are processing के लिए भी data लगता है, right? So they also consume electricity. That electricity bill is different activity data and different source. You saw that two different source point in the data center.
Yes. Yeah.
Does it clarify to you?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Third will be their management of that data center. There will be office, there will be guy who is looking after it, or there will be certain common areas, toilet, bathroom, whatever the related aspect of it. Because such kind of data center, if it's quality A, it has to be accessible from all sides, right? So that will be the third point of data collection. And activity data could be common lighting, common desk chair connection, the maintenance guy, carbon emission, yeah, the toilet bathroom water usage. All this could be a data point. So I'm saying I will find 100, not only 10, but I'm just giving you idea that what is here emission source and what is here activity data.
Sorry, one more, Vivek, might be a
Please,
silly,
go ahead.
yes, silly question might be like, let's take, no, in a particular bigger office, they are using, no, for cleaning, no, the chemicals they are using, like, right?
Okay.
So, will are these being also calculated today?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. It's a data point. That is why ESG reporting, when we will go, we'll talk about that. There is a social aspect of it. If you are really using bad chemicals, you are impacting your employee or your outsourced employee who are cleaning guys. Are you getting my point? Yeah. If you are using acid in your bathroom cleaning, you are exposing that guy, and that's a social matter. Employee things will kick in. So not only environment, but also you are exposing your employee with a chemical, which is a safety issue. ISO 45001 will kick in. The safe environment, HERA will kick in. Your risk matrix has to be there. So all that is a part of ESG reporting. Let's limit ourselves to our discussion, which is related to carbon dioxide emission, which is CO2 emission. Now, collection of the activity data, I'm just showing another example here, not mentioning the company, but you can see on the right-hand side, the activity data is that particular operation, and the source is where you are collecting the same. For example, waste management can have 20 points to collect. You are saying, I told you waste management, here is that detail. Waste management could be on-site incineration or landfill itself. So in the site itself, you are burning your kachra, right? There could be a possibility you have a water heater, which is also emitting a carbon dioxide in place. It could be hot water boiler, which are a natural gas. Through natural gas they are heating, or it can be heated through the fuel bills. And the activity data here is the fuel bill or usage loggage, how much of that heater or boiler has been used. Third will be agriculture emission, where the livestock and soil management is a issue. Yeah, so you have that in the center. So CH4 is getting emitted. Yeah, methane. This livestock is emitting methane, and they are also emitting the land grasses. There has to be patches, pastures, etc. for those livestock. So the emission source will be CH4, which you are collecting from the livestock number, or nitrous oxide for the fertilizer you are using for that pasture. But activity data source will be that farm record, that how much of nitrogen has been brought in, how much was used, how much of cattle has been cut, how much daily one cow or one sheep is, how much they are emitting CH4. That calculation will come as activity data.
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead, Rajni.
Any guidebook for this
I
must
told
be
you
able.
IPCC. IPCC is the ideal guidebook, which you can refer to. AR6 is the document name, will help you that where to collect data. But ideally, you should try your own self. And that is why site visit is required. Whenever we are doing consulting, we make sure that we go to the site, because you will be there, no? So you will find the real stuff. I will give you, maybe not today, I will give you some example tomorrow, that where we are doing and what did we find. Yeah, very interesting story. Remind me and I will tell you about the Jaipur story. Okay, let's go to the last 2 points. Let me cover at least the module 2 today, otherwise it will be too late. Select the relevant emission factor. So here the calculation happens. Step 4, if you have seen, the emission calculation happens. Emission calculation again is same mobile calculator is required and you can do it. Why? Because that document, Rajniji, IPCC AR6 or DEFRA, which is a UK-based system, or US-based system is also very much used from EPA, IC. These are the 3 main documents which you have to refer, and all of 3 are public good. It is available. If you want, I will share with you. Clear? These books are important because they provide you one side of the calculation here, which is what? Emission factor. On right-hand side, you can see CO2 is written. Can everybody see that? That emission factor comes from these 3 sources. India, specifically for energy management, they have a system from CEA, Center for Energy Authority. CEA, that's the authority which provides that emission factor. Activity data, on the previous step, you have already calculated from different sources. That number you have to put. This was the example of a toy factory. So toy factory per unit, if you want to calculate, so you know how much one toy is weighing, so kg, and how much of this carbon is emitted just by knowing that what all process this has gone, which all activity it has gone through while getting produced. I multiply the emission factor, which is applicable to that particular activity, each of those activity, and I get a total number, and that total number is emission from that toy. Any confusion here? If not, let's go and look into what is that deciding emission factor. How you decide that which book I should use. That is another question nobody has asked me yet. Yeah, but once you will read the case, and tomorrow once you will come back, you ask me this, right? And I will tell you how to do it. There are 3 levels of data, and it will be very clear when we will start the scope 3. Because in scope 3, each of the category, not each of them, but at least there are 3 type of data requirement in scope 3. And that's why once I will show you one statistics about scope 3, nobody on an average, actually around 6 of those 15s are only reported in sustainability report. There are 15 categories, right? On an average, 6 to 7 factors only companies are using. Few companies are there extraordinarily, like we saw Microsoft, IBM, they are doing 11. Yeah, because they are focusing on a scope 3. But most of them are using 6 to 7. And that point in time, we will look into which emission factor and which data point I should be using. Yeah, more clarity will come when we will go to scope 3. This is how you do it. There are 3 tiers of data which you can use. Tier 1, you are asking Rajniji, your answer is here on the page. Take a screenshot, this is your life is sorted. Tier 1 is basically a default factor based on the broad or generic data. So this is a generic data applied for industry, country, etc. Which is that data? IPCC emission factor guide. It will be around somewhere, sometime it is 200% also different than actual calculation. Yeah, but normally it is assumed that 10 to 20% variation comes. If you have used IPCC and you have calculated your carbon accounting for scope 1 and 2, the variation will come with how much? 20% on an average. But I have seen if you do AQI measurement on that process, 200% difference is also there. Why? Because it's international data, right? UN has collected data for all across world, different country, different scenarios, and they have averaged it out and put it for you to use based on those particular activity, but activity to activity. Yeah, waste management, you saw the activity, right? So those activities are important here. So tier one data is little far away from the actual reality. I'm going very slow here. Tier one data is far away from the actual reality. Why it is far away? Because it's a global data, right? Is US terrain is similar than Kenya? Presley? Definitely not, right? US terrain is different. Kenya has a lot of greenery. Yeah, US has a lot of barren land. Is it same as our Mumbai? Absolutely not. Is it same as Delhi? Absolutely not. So that difference creates that deviation. The terrain is different, electricity generation type is different. US में people use gas for generating electricity. India में what do we use mostly?
Coal.
Coal. Yeah. In Africa, coal. They also have a lot of coal. So my point here is that is why it is far away data, which is called tier one data. Tier 2 data is more specific. For example, in India, people use Central Electricity Authority. In UK, they use DEFRA, right? For tier 3, highly specific data. For this kind of cement companies, you should use only this data. There are specific data provider, emission data factor provider, but they charge you like crazy. Crazy. Even though they are giving us cement factory data, they will charge you like pagal. It's a crazy number they will ask from you to get that access to that data. That's why people do not generally go to tier 3. Okay. But when we will go to scope 3 and each category, when we will see with example, we will see that there are some time it is required you to have company specific measurement. Otherwise, you can't report on those particular category. And then the clarity will suddenly strike you that, oh, that's why people are not, or they have to use tier 3 data. Otherwise, why tier 3 data exists? If my calculation itself requires me to spend millions of dollars, why even I will go there near to it? That's the point there. So tier 3 data is the most accurate data, but it's most difficult to source. Yeah, even a lot of software. There is one software which is known as carbon dot IO, something like that. Carbon.io. I'm forgetting the name. Tomorrow I will bring. That company software, if you will buy, just imagine how much you will pay per year. Give me a estimate, just a ballpark number. Anybody, give a shot. Okay,
10
just
million, $1 million.
Per year you have to spend. For installing that software, they are charging in millions of dollars. Means we approached them, give us the franchisee for India. They said, and India में consumer ही नहीं मिलेगा. You have Reliance, who is the largest company, he's just spending lakh of rupees to prepare the sustainability report. Will he ever spend $1 million to just source a software to collect the data?
ESG Pro Institute has developed its own software for this.
Software, and he's charging millions of dollars to just install on your computer and your company.
No, I'm asking something else.
What is
You
that?
have a
He's
franchise.
asking for ESG
You
Pro.
are running the ESG Pro.
No, we have not developed. We have a tie-up with another firm called Breathe ESG, which is also based out of Bangalore. The guys are from KPMG. They have developed their own software. He's a ex-KPMG, I think he's from, I'm from Berkeley. I'm from Pennsylvania. He's from Berkeley. So he is educated from Berkeley. He has set up his own firm. And he's doing for, by the way, very famous company in Delhi, which is an investor. Kawaljit, have you heard about Mr. Kawaljit? He is the biggest investor right now for D2C side. Any startup who does D2C is the biggest investor. For his company, he has done, again, WeWork. You know WeWork, right? Have you guys heard about WeWork?
Yeah.
So we have implemented for them. Okay, all WeWork calculates their carbon accounting with Breathe ESG. So we are working with them. So we do not charge in millions and billions. Nobody will pay you in India. I told you example, right? Those guys declined it face away. Pehle to he has not responded. They didn't respond to our email. Then we found out their numbers. We called them in USA. Then they said straight away, boss, look, in India, you're the largest companies are doing a report in few thousands of
Who is their user, major user?
where is the user? Where I will find the user? You tell me, and I am ready to do it
No,
with you guys.
their user, their software user, who is there
It's massive.
globally?
All the SAP guys who are using it, large exploration guys, they are using it. So they have that customer. Means tomorrow I will give you the website or I will post it in the group. Go to their website, have a look at it.
You work with any of the government PSU?
Government PSU can buy like ONGC, but I don't know. They have also not bought. ONGC report is also crap. They said India में उनका consumer नहीं है रजनी जी. So and you don't want and sell their product. And tomorrow, if they are unable to calculate in the sterile, you will be tested. But they have a system. They have IoT inbuilt system, so it helps in mitigation as well. So it's not a joke. It has a lot of stuff which very few people understand right now. But they said in couple of years, India will be ready, and then we will be in that market. Or somebody is using it, didn't tell me. If somebody is using in India, I don't know. Yeah, they
I've
didn't.
seen a few consultants making on their own software. The way maybe your friend is also making it.
Yeah, having a software helps you. Why? Because then company's system can mature. The accuracy slowly comes into light, right? So I produced a report saying, say for ONGC, and I told ONGC has so much of exploration and discharge in terms of crude oil, and they have so much of carbon dioxide emission. What ONGC will do, he will not say that, okay, Vivek, you have done a great job. He will say that, okay, can you check Aramco? How much Aramco per gallon of crude oil operation, how much of carbon dioxide they are emitting? In the GRI, by the way, we cover Aramco Presley. So that time we will show you that how they work. So Aramco data, they will compare. Okay, so they are, and then they will know that my system is not giving me the right result. So he will ask you, he will ask Subodhji, you, that why did you use tier 1? Why didn't you use tier 2? So you will say, okay, let me find the tier 2 data for you. That also will not help him because Aramco is giving a lesser carbon dioxide emission than you per gallon of crude emissions. Again, they will come back to you. Then you will say that please use software which they are using, right?
There will be consistency. If you use software, there will be consistency in your reporting.
Consistency, accuracy, because that system they are also using. So the emission factor which they are using, you will be using the same emission factor.
Okay.
Okay, that's the
So
difference.
comparison will be easier.
Yes, and the largest company, the very big sophisticated company, they major for those industry. If they are in that industry, they invest also, right? They calculate certain factors and
By using that software, some of the cost you may save, no? You may get
that is
some
what
factors easily. So you may not be required to do in the finer
Absolutely.
calculation or finer measurement system.
Absolutely. That's it. We have a quiz, so let's do that quickly.
Are you going to ask now?
Yes, now. I will not let you go, even though I'm late now. Let's do this 10 questions quiz, quick. Join in, just scan it.
पता नहीं अब काफी चीजें समझ नहीं आई होंगी.
अरे कोई नहीं, आ जाएगी ना. क्वेश्चन करूंगा तो आएगी, नहीं तो you cannot retain it. I know what is the problem here. Okay, everyone, please scan it.
1 minute, 1 minute. Yeah, good enough.
Or just go to slido.com and key in 4196.